1 year since the Taliban's return to power, and Afghanistan is on the brink of a humanitarian crisis.
6 million people one step from famine, 3.8 million malnourished children across the country.
And the crippling sanctions have left the Afghan economy in tatters.
I think living in fear is worse than death, and death was better than to live in fear.
But one country has spotted an opportunity: China.
我们只了解呢，就是国际贸易，我们只了解阿富汗对国际上有什么样可以销售的。
Or will the risks of doing business in Afghanistan prove insurmountable?
They pose direct threat, at least to Chinese embassy and to Chinese nationals there in Afghanistan.
August 15, 2022, downtown Kabul. Taliban fighters are out in numbers, celebrating their 1-year anniversary since the group swept into the Afghan capital. A public holiday is announced as fighters gathered spontaneously in the main squares of central Kabul. Young Taliban sing songs of victory in streets they once attacked during the US-led war of their country. Others parade triumphantly in captured US military vehicles.
دلته موږ الحمدلله استقلال لپاره راغلي وو. هغه څوک چې غواړي افغانستان خراب کړي د هغو نه موږ ورته دا اخطار ورکوو چې څومره زور لري راشه ویې دا خو ناټو ده چې نور څونه ملکونه مې راشه موږ الحمدلله ورته ولاړ یو هېڅ مشکل نشته ده. موږ خپل سر په خپل ګران افغانستان او د شهادت لپاره قربانوو.
Their party continued symbolically right in front of the now empty embassy of the United States that has now been draped in the Islamic Emirates coat of arms. The celebrations are in stark contrast to the humanitarian disaster unfolding nearby. Flash floods in the Logar province, about 65 kilometers from Kabul, has decimated villages, killing more than 180 people. Scores of Afghans are scrambling to find loved ones who have gone missing. Hundreds of homes and farmlands have been washed away. It's a death warrant for many residents here who survive solely on subsistence agriculture. There's no food, water, or much assistance from Taliban authorities in this village.
و مگم سیل برده از بالا زیاد کسا رو برده دیگه من خیلی کس زیر خانه نشده دیگه تعداد تا الان فعلا معلوم نیست دیگه که چقدر مرده و چقدر زخمی شده خب خانه رو زیاد خراب کرده دیگه دیروز تقریبا نماز دیگر بود که واقعه شد سیل آمد دیگه موقع شد که خود کشیدیم به کوه رفتیم دیگه خانه رو کارش چلو.
Women and children wait under the sun for any help that can arrive. local Taliban officials seem overwhelmed in the face of the disaster. This is Afghanistan, 1 year after the Taliban took hold of power. Such disasters have made a bad situation worse for one of the poorest countries on the planet. In other parts of Afghanistan, the wheat yield has dropped by 30% due to droughts. It's resulted in 19 million people now declared as food insecure. That's 9 out of 10 people in Afghanistan not having enough food to eat. Earlier this year, the UN sought to raise $4.4 billion in aid to avert widespread starvation. But Afghans have so far only received less than 50% of that amount. In an urgent humanitarian response, the World Food Programme has stepped in to provide 21 million Afghans with cash and nutritional support. But as calamities mount, aid agencies are now facing a shortage of funds to sustain humanitarian operations.
We are facing unprecedented levels of hunger, with 19 million people not knowing where their next meal comes from, 6 million people one step from famine, 3.8 million malnourished children across the country. It's as if one emergency is stacked on top of the other emergency. We have 4 decades of conflict, we have an economic meltdown, we have environmental disasters, we have the flooding, and only a few weeks ago we had an earthquake and all the aftershocks. Urgently, we need $170 million to pre-position food across the country and to reach 18 million people in dire need of assistance till the end of the year. WFP needs $906 million until the end of the year.
Many marketplaces in Kabul brim with food, but not all can afford to purchase it. Unemployment rate is expected to hit 25% by the end of 2022. Because of sanctions and rise in global food prices, inflation is above 15%. These economic hardships are almost insurmountable for those who have endured 20 years of war. August 11, 2021, changed the life of Abdul Bashir forever. He lost 9 family members to a US drone attack. The 49-year-old resident of Agui district in Badakhshan suffered 3rd-degree burns on both his legs and one of his arms.
12 بجه شب خواب بودیم، هیچ نفهمیدیم که کی بود و کی نبود. تنها چند 2 ماه پس آمدیم خانه خود، دیدیم که نه اولاد است و نه فامیل است و هیچ کسی نیست. تنها برای ما گفتن که طیاره آمریکایی بود، طیاره آمریکایی زد. دیگه قاتل اونمو کس هستیم.
Abdul also lost his home, along with his life savings of $5 million in local currency, equivalent to $56,000. His family is among the estimated 500,000 casualties of the US war on terror in Afghanistan. The Taliban blamed the Americans for the current state of their country.
آمریکایی ها در این شکی نیست که در 20 سالی که در افغانستان حضور نظامی داشتند، با تمام توانی که داشتند با مردم ما خیانت کردن، غدر کردن. وقتی که داخل افغانستان شدن، در یک شب یک روز بیشتر از 70,000 بمب را در 24 ساعت که هلیکوپترها و امو تیارات جنگیشان از میدانهای هوایی پاکستان پرواز میکرد در افغانستان انجام دادن که منجر به شهادت هزارا هموطن ما شد.
But with the Taliban firmly in power, aid agencies are faced with a dilemma. Will their donations end up funding this oppressive regime instead of helping those in need?
We were always living in fear.
When Army Major General Christopher T. Donahue boarded a C-17 on August 30th, 2021 at Kabul International Airport, he was the last soldier to leave Afghanistan. It marked an end of the 20-year conflict in Afghanistan. It also completed the Taliban's rapid advance on the capital and imposition of Sharia rule over the country. In the year that has passed, Afghanistan's troubles have only exacerbated. At least 90% of the population is currently living below the poverty line due to sanctions and economic mismanagement. Just when their families need money, many women find themselves unable to earn. The Taliban's interpretation of Sharia law means women are prohibited from many jobs, including government and banking sectors. In the months following the Taliban takeover, women employment fell by 16%. Women are losing their right to work.
I don't know any Afghan women who ever believed the Taliban's promises that they had changed and that they would now respect women's rights. I think that it was very clear to Afghan women all along that these were false promises. And they knew that not only because of how the Taliban behaved when they were last in power from 1996 to 2001, but also because they knew how the Taliban were behaving in Taliban-controlled areas that they were running at the exact same moment when they were making those promises.
Taliban oppression has led to many fleeing the country. Across the border in neighboring Pakistan, a stone's throw away from parliament is an Afghan Hazara refugee camp. In this upscale Islamabad neighborhood, some 500 families have erected this tent city in a children's playground that was created for the city's rich. Hazara women here have created a temporary kitchen where they cook food by burning wood collected from nearby forests. They share a single public bathroom and use water collected through rain harvesting. This camp is home to 15-year-old Sumaya Kurwani, who once lived a dignified life in the Shia-dominated neighborhood of Dash-e-Bachi in Kabul. The 20 years of US-backed governments had brought some sense of normalcy for girls like her, but that disappeared with the Taliban's return to power. The militant group consider the Shias as heretics and have refused them any share in power. Religious minorities like Sumaya's family were forced to flee.
Taliban, they themselves are Sunni and they are trying to attack Shia. And I think they think that our beliefs, the beliefs that we have, they are wrong. And especially they think, and it means generally they think that we are wrong, we are completely non-Muslim. When we went to school, we were blasted. So many schools, they were blasted. When we went to mosque, when we prayed, again, we were blasted. It seems that we had peace, but there was no peace for Hazara people. So we couldn't live there, especially for the women. We could go to school, but again, we were blasted. We were always living in fear. And I think living in fear is worse than death. And death was better than to live in fear.
Despite the harsh conditions at the camp, girls like Sumaya are the lucky ones who managed to escape. According to the Taliban's interpretation of Sharia law, Afghan women above the age of 18 cannot leave the country without a male guardian. Sumaya lives in a temporary tent with her sister, who fled Kabul in a taxi when the US forces withdrew from Afghanistan.
We are 9% in our family, and in 15 August, the worst day in my life, in our life, and all people, Hazara people, that day, that day was really bad for us. That day we lost our family. I lost my father, my mother, my brothers. I lost all of them. That day, as usual, I with my sister, we went to school. My brother went to university. My big brother, he went to his job. And my father, my parents, with my 3 brothers, they were at home. And that day, Taliban captured Afghanistan, Kabul. And when we came from our school there, when we came, our parents, they were not at home.
Girls' education is now banned in Afghanistan. Here, in Islamabad, she can continue with her studies by enrolling in local schools in the city. But without proper documents and expiring visas, any sense of normalcy still remains a distant reality.
First of all, we are so thankful from government of Pakistan because they let us to be here to continue our protest. And just we want from the government of Pakistan to just be our voice, to help us with our goal. So we are refugees in here, and the life of a refugee is very difficult in here because the government of Pakistan don't give any citizenship to refugees, to no one. And when we don't have the citizenship, so we cannot go to school, we cannot go to university, we cannot go to clinics, we cannot have our, it means we cannot continue our life, it means freely. It means there are lots of people that they live, it means 30 years, 40 years in here, but again, they are like a refugee.
62% of the Afghans that fled to neighboring countries since the start of 2021 went to Pakistan. On the fringes of Islamabad is another Afghan slum, a collection of more than 1,000 families living in mud houses. Such slums across Pakistan are home to more than 4 million Afghan refugees. 60-year-old Nasib Khan has lived here for more than 30 years. He escaped to Pakistan in the 1980s after Soviet Russia invaded Afghanistan. He was shot by a Russian soldier in Kunduz province as he tried to escape his war-torn homeland.
40 साल 45 साल हो गए उधर को डॉक्टर हम ना हो गए इलाका बगैर डॉक्टर सूबे से न चल लेता है हुकूमत का सूबा हो गया उसका डरता है कि मुझे कभी गोली न लगे जार पिचकारी ना करता है उसका डरता है फिर 3 साल ऊपर थोड़ा जख्म ठीक हो गए बस पाकिस्तान से आते हैं डॉक्टर मुझे लंबर देना है खिदमत करता है वो बीमार है ये मेरा हाथ का काम न करता है ये शुगर वजह से गुर्दो काम न करता है शुगर वजह से ये सबूत मारा पड़ा है ये वली फैमिली का कागज़ है डॉक्टर देखना है मोर लगा है कम्प्लेक्स का सबूत मारा पड़ा है इधर मच्छर कहे गए बिजली नहीं पानी नहीं मजदूरी खुद का करता है और तो इतना दिल का सख्त है तो दिल से तो कलिमा ही मुसलमान है ज़ुबान से मुसलमान है नीचे आई है नहीं
Despite the squalid living conditions, Nasib's greatest worry is being sent back to a Taliban-controlled Afghanistan.
ये तर मसाइल है कि इसके निकलो एक हफ्ता टीम है फिर बोले 2 हफ्ता टीम है चलो गो माँ आराम से न सोए गए दिमागी हालत ख़राब बीमारी है और सोच करता है और हम सोच करते हैं या अल्लाह मुझे डॉक्टरी का काम करते हैं रोज़ी से मिंगे हम अगर मैं उधर चोपड़ा से बनेगा हम वही हालत अल्लाह से बाबर को हमारा घर वाला वो इसके चोपड़ा सास करता है वही हालात से मज़दूर 1000 रुपये 1200 रुपये रोज़ाना लेते हैं माँ किसके देने में उसका मज़दूर देने में देवाल बने गए फिर ये देखो गलम उगड़ों में बारिश आता है अगर हमारा बोला निकलो बिलडोज़र निकले गए मैं वो बारिश के उधर खड़ा हो गए हमारे साथ बारिश हो गई हमारा बच्चों से तो अल्लाह से न डरता है
The Taliban's treatment of women, minorities and returning refugees explain why international aid to the country has not been forthcoming. Many donors worry that aid money will be used to fund a militant group instead of helping those in need. But amidst this cloud of international distrust, one country has proclaimed itself a true friend of Afghanistan. China has opened up its aid coffers.
It's a pleasure to attend this handover ceremony of the 6,370 tons food supplies provided by Chinese government to Afghanistan National Disaster Management Authority for the emergency humanitarian assistance. The Chinese government immediately announced to provide 215 billion yuan of emergency humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan.
The Chinese government has flown in cash, tents, quilts, and other supplies through the Red Cross Society of China to disaster-hit areas as well.
China would like to offer its help as much as possible. So in this regard, we actually have been in contact with Taliban before Americans pull out. China had a vital role even during the war because China was the third largest trading partner to Afghanistan after Pakistan and Iran even at that time. And our purpose for Afghanistan is very simple. We hope the Taliban government will honor its own promise to let the country to become open and inclusive.
An open and inclusive Afghanistan will be to China's advantage as it looks for economic opportunities in the Central Asian nation. Could Chinese investments revive an Afghan economy laid low by war and sanctions? It's been 1 year since the Americans exited Afghanistan after a hastily signed peace deal with the Taliban. This is known as the Doha Agreement. A fragile, aid-based economy has collapsed, crushing millions of Afghans who now live life in abject poverty. But this economic vacuum is slowly being filled by Chinese businessmen who are increasing the economic footprint in Afghanistan. This 10-story building here in Kabul is called Chinatown. It was set up by a Chinese investment group in 2019. The group has also proposed building a Chinese industrial park near Kabul, a plan which was approved by the Taliban government in April. Here at Chinatown, it is populated by steel traders, deal makers, and textile merchants. It houses dozens of factories producing shoes, home appliances, and textiles. Many of the daily necessities needed in Afghanistan are made and distributed to the rest of the country from here. Chinese products here have almost no competition in the country. Yu Binhui is the manager of Chinatown.
20年前我们来到这个阿富汗呢，是我们的工作，我本身就是做这个外贸工作的，我们在其他国家做外贸工作，然后呢，阿富汗呢，格局已经变了。20年前的时候，塔利班呢和美国呢，战争呢在逐渐的。到了阿富汗，我们做经贸，我们就发现需要有一个平台来展示商品和销售商品，还有和当地呢商场或者是平台。那这些种种原因，使我们建设的这个中国城，给中国人和世界上的一些商人和阿富汗人都提供一个互相交易、放心、可靠的这样的一个平台。
As the world's diplomats and militaries packed up and left the Afghan capital, many Chinese stayed put. They now have rare access to a country that most in the global business community have abandoned.
可以互相做贸易，对政治上呢，我们从来就不懂，我们也不是那么的这个了解，我们只了解呢就是国际贸易，我们只了解阿富汗对国际上有什么样可以销售的，那么国际上有什么样的产品呢？对阿富汗可以销售的，我们研究的领域就是阿富汗和中国和其他国家的一个贸易。你现在看到的这个中国城，人多的时候呢，在30多个阿富汗的员工，人少的时候呢，在10几个，就是现在的时候呢，是人少的时候。你像去年是吧，我们大约投资有200到300万美金的这样的一些产业，包括了原料，包括了机器设备和我们的一些正常的业务投入在阿富汗。当然了。
The Chinese ambassador to Afghanistan, Wang Yu, assured its nationals that the Taliban leadership will protect Chinese investors. Chinatown has become a bigger platform to facilitate Chinese businessmen in exploring opportunities in the reconstruction of Afghanistan. It has set up an Afghanistan Institute, a loose group of Chinese experts to consult on business ventures in the country. Beijing is offering what the Taliban need the most: political legitimacy and investments.
China, being Afghan's close neighbor and being the only great power that has never invaded Afghanistan, should actually be in a better position to provide Afghan people better opportunities. First is its industrial capability, because China is already the largest industrial nation on earth. Besides, China is next to none in terms of its infrastructure building capabilities. That is certainly widely talked about, even at the government level. Both the Chinese government and the Taliban government talked about it. And I believe there is a possibility, for example, extending this CPEC in Pakistan and to build, for example, a highway from Kabul to Islamabad.
The CPEC, or the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure project linking Pakistan to China, meant to facilitate trade. By extending this to Afghanistan, China could have access to what it truly prizes: a treasure trove of minerals worth trillions of US dollars. This includes gold, copper, uranium, and rare earth metals. With an eye on such Afghan riches, China has also included Afghanistan in its Belt and Road Initiative.
In December 2020, there was a meeting of the International Working Group, the Working Group on International Cooperation of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. This was held in Urumqi, the capital of Xinjiang province, which borders Afghanistan. And there it was decided that we have to broaden the scope of CPEC, involve other countries in the region, and the first stop would be Afghanistan. And Afghanistan itself is very keen to join CPEC and be part of the regional connectivity that is emerging.
As Chinese investments grow, Pakistani businessmen are taking notes. Pakistan is one of Afghanistan's biggest trading partners. In 2020, Pakistan exported $870 million worth of goods to Afghanistan. Many products traded between the two countries are sourced and manufactured in China. That makes the China-Pakistan-Afghanistan economic relationship critical for this region's development. And at the center of this relationship is the Sost dry port, the first point of entry for Chinese goods entering Pakistan. Here, Pakistani businessmen like Aziz Ahmad receive their orders of Chinese-made goods and sell them to the rest of Pakistan and Afghanistan. His shipment of household goods have just arrived from China.
I'm one of the importers who go to China or send their people to China. They go to different cities, to Guangzhou, to Urumqi. They buy the consumer goods from there according to their, the volume of their own investment. Chinese containers basically bring it here. They offload all the goods here. We load them back in Pakistani trucks and we head back to our destinations.
Chinese goods that arrive in Pakistan at the Sost dry port are then trucked onwards on the Karakoram highway. It is the most critical road link that connects China with the rest of Pakistan and Afghanistan. The Karakoram Highway, built by Chinese engineers in the 1970s, is the shortest road link connecting Afghanistan, Pakistan, and China. It forms the backbone of the trade corridor of the three countries.
First of all, major goods imported from China are crockeries, blankets, garments, and some other, consumer goods. I basically import machinery and crockeries and blankets from China. There are two ways. One is the sea, other one is this road, this trade route.
After traveling for 1,300 kilometers on the Karakoram highway, the Chinese products arrive in wholesale transit markets like these in Rawalpindi. Raja Bazaar is the hub of Chinese electronic products. From here, it takes less than 3 hours for products to reach Afghanistan. Zishan Shinwari is a Pakistani businessman who routinely sells Chinese electronic products to Afghan customers arriving from across the border.
मेरा ताल्लुक चूँकि ज़िला खैबर पख्तूनख्वा से बॉर्डर पर मेरा घर है। अगर अफगानिस्तान ना होता तो हम भी नहीं है, क्योंकि अफगानिस्तान को हम जो है ये बहुत चीज़ें एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं। अफगानिस्तान में इस वक्त हालात बहुत बुरे हैं, उनके साथ लोगों के साथ पैसे नहीं, मईशत नहीं, तो पाकिस्तान थोड़ा बहुत कर लेंगे तो अफगानिस्तान को हम जो है ये जो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स हमारा काम है वो भी एक्सपोर्ट कर लेंगे, उनको भी आसानी होगा, क्योंकि वो चाइना इंडिया से ले आते हैं, ये ईरान से ले आते, बहुत से ममालिक से जो है इम्पोर्ट करते हैं, लेकिन वो लोग कह रहे हैं कि ये इतना पायदार नहीं है। तो हमारे ये मुतालिबा भी हुकूमत से, चाइना से भी है कि इनको जो है आसानी से एक्सपोर्ट मिल जाए, ताकि जो है उनको हमारा प्रोडक्ट भी बिक जाएगा और उनको लोगों का फ़ायदा होगा। चाइना का ज़्यादातर इसलिए पसंद करता है कि चाइना पायदार भी बना लेता है, और दूसरा ये कि अगर एक जूसर आप जो है मलेशिया का ले लें 19,000 का है, तो वही जो चाइना में 4,000 5,000 में मिल जाता है, तो कस्टमर को भी ईजी होता है और दुकानदार को भी ईजी होता है।
Zishan has been trading Chinese-made goods to Afghans for 10 years. Till a few years ago, Afghanistan was the second major export destination for Pakistan after the United States. But today, there's been a drop in exports, and trade between the two countries has dropped from $1 billion to $550 million per year. But he believes that with Chinese investment, trade will pick up.
चाइना में ये बात है कि एक तो ईमानदार लोग हैं, दूसरा वो कितनेज़म दीन पे जो ना दीन वाले हैं, वो एक बेईमानी नहीं करता। दूसरा बात है कि बेहतरीन जिस तरह हमारे अपने पाकिस्तानी अपने पख्तून भाई से हमारा जिस तरह रवैया रिलेशन है ना, उसी तरह चाइना के साथ भी है, कोई इस तरह मुश्किल काम नहीं है। ये बहुत होगा क्योंकि चाइना इधर पाकिस्तान में फैक्ट्री लगाएंगे, हम जो है अफगानिस्तान ईरान ये सबको एक्सपोर्ट कर लेंगे माल, तो हमारे लिए बहुत बेहतरीन पैदा है, और होना भी चाहिए कि चाइना जो है ये सीपे को आगे बढ़ाए, 3-4 मुल्क बढ़ाए, तो हमारे लिए ईजी होगा। बाय रोड अफगानिस्तान भी जाएगा, खलिस्तान भी जाएगी, ईरान भी जाएगा हमारा, तो इससे हमारा जो है मईशत और इकनॉमी जो है बहुत मजबूत हो जाएगी।
Connecting Afghanistan to the China-Pakistan economic corridor is a golden opportunity for China. And while Beijing has not officially recognized the Taliban government, Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited Kabul earlier this year as a sign of coziness between the two countries.
Mr. Wang Yi, the foreign minister, hosted it. The Afghan Taliban delegation was there, and there was the first formal meeting about the trilateral economic cooperation between Pakistan, China and Afghanistan after the Taliban took over Kabul last August. So the process is now proceeding on track, and all three countries, Pakistan, Afghanistan and China, are on board and are very keen, ready and able to take this cooperation forward under the framework of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which, as you know, is the flagship and the pivot of the Belt and Road Initiative.
But even as Beijing wants to increase its economic footprint in the region, attacks on Chinese workers are complicating the situation. August 5th, 2022. Protests erupt in Kabul as thousands of Afghans march to protest against a US drone strike that killed Al-Qaeda chief Ayman al-Zawahiri. The CIA took credit for the strike.
آمریکا چی حق داره وقتی که فرار کرد گریخت یک پوتش در دستش یک تاش در دهانه در نصفش از افغانستان فرار کرد امو شرمندگی بسشه دیگه آبرو براتون نمونده است که بیای ما رو بمباردمان کنه.
Officials claim Zawahiri was on the balcony of a safe house when the drone fired 2 missiles at him. The drone attack triggered protests in other Afghan provinces, with images of President Joe Biden burned to show rising anti-American sentiments.
که ما را از با می سرنوشت ما را از 40 سال 40 چند سال ما مردم به خون خاک کشانید.
The Taliban had claimed that the strike violated the Doha Agreement with the United States. Ayman al-Zawahiri's assassination has led to increased security in the capital. Equipped with American weapons and security gear, these Taliban soldiers are on the lookout for American spies trying to conduct intelligence-based operations.
دا خو معلومه ده ښکاره ده چې سرغړونه یې کړې ده نو دا خو انشاءالله یو ځینې لکه یو ځای چې په کلکو ټکو غندم نو دا هر یو ځوان هر یو زموږ د وطن ساتونکی په کلکه غندي خو انشاءالله تعالی که چیرې دوهم ځلې دپاره دا چې سرغړونه وکړله نو موږ هر یو ځوان استشهادي حملې ته تیار ده چې استشهادي حمله د دوی په خپل هیواد کې پرې وکړو نو انشاءالله دغه کوم ډرون حملې چې دوی کړي دي نو دغه به هم انشاءالله تعالی پوښتنه ترې کوو چې دوی په خپل سر سرغړونه یې کړې زموږ په هیواد کې دوی ډرون حملې کړي دي.
The Taliban leadership has sent a severe warning to the United States. Never repeat an attack on Afghan soil.
ظلم ده سخت ظلم ده د موږ په وطن باندې دوی کوم مخکې راغلی او شل کاله څه لاسته راوړنې وکړلې خپل هدف ته راغلی او پوس موږ وطن یې ړنګ کړ ویجاړې کړ پوه شولې امریکا هېڅ وخت موږ په ګاټه باندې کار نه ده کړی هر وخت موږ افغانانو سره ظلم کړی ده نړیوالو قوانینو بغیر په موږ باندې حملې کړي دي نو بد یې کړي دي پوه شولې سختو ټکو باندې موږ دا غندو امریکا دروغ وایي هسې موږ وطن ته یو پلمې او بانې لټوي موږ په خاوره باندې تجاوز کوي زیاتی کوي ظلم کوي هېڅوک هم د موږ په خاوره کې نشته دا ناممکنه خبر ده دروغ نړیوالو ته هم دا پیغام ده چې بیا د موږ په خاور باندې هېڅ وخت تجاوز نه کوي که تجاوز یې کاو دا خو ظلم د زیاتی ده که بیا تجاوز کاو که نه موږ هم کولی شو داسې غاښ ماتونکی ځواب ورکړو امریکا سره به سخت چیلنج ورکوم امریکا چې له خاورو سره به امریکا خاورې وکړو.
As American relations with Afghanistan continue to deteriorate, China has been wooing the Central Asian country with aid and investments.
There is, I think, a huge potential for Chinese investment, and the Afghan Taliban regime has already said that their preferred choice of an international economic and trading partner is China.
In return, Beijing wants security guarantees from the Taliban. The Chinese government has repeatedly pressed the new regime to tackle terrorism emanating from its soil. The focus is on the East Turkestan Islamic Movement, or ETIM, a Uyghur militant group that seeks to liberate the Xinjiang region and which Beijing sees as a threat. The group is believed to be operating in Afghanistan. An image that recently surfaced showed the group's leader, Abdul Haq al-Turkestani, celebrating Eid in the north of the country in May 2022.
China's primary concern is ETIM, which has about 400 to 500 people, including the families, operating in Afghanistan. And they pose direct threat, at least to Chinese embassy and to Chinese nationals there in Afghanistan. So that is why we have a very clear-cut conversation with Taliban government to ask them to put these people under control.
Chinese nationals are also being targeted outside of Afghanistan. November 23, 2018. The Chinese consulate in Karachi was attacked as 3 suicide bombers stormed the facility in Karachi. At least 2 Pakistani policemen were killed and a security guard was wounded after the attackers were neutralized. April 26, 2022. A female suicide bomber attacked the Confucius Institute at Karachi University that killed 3 Chinese teachers. The Baloch Liberation Army, a terror group operating from Iran and Afghanistan, claimed responsibility for both the attacks.
The motive of our attack was very clear. It was a simple and clear message to China and Pakistan to withdraw immediately from Balochistan.
According to government investigations, the attacks against Chinese investments in Karachi were planned from hideouts in Afghanistan and Iran.
The Taliban will have to ensure that no terrorist activities take place from their soil. But unfortunately, the Taliban have not been able to do so, and that is why it has led to skirmishes on both sides. And of course, Pakistan will do all it can to defend its side of the border. But again, I think it's important for the Taliban to realize that now they're the government, and they will have to ensure that such groups do not operate.
Meanwhile, the rise of Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, a splinter group of the Afghan Taliban, has alarm bells ringing in Islamabad and Beijing. After the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, the TTP's Ummah media released images of their militants training in Afghanistan's Kuna province, bordering the porous border with Pakistan. Armed with American weapons, the terror group has launched a number of attacks against the Pakistani army to impose Sharia law in the country. Critics claim the TTP have the backing of the Afghan Taliban, with one of their top commanders pictured here using an Afghan domestic airline.
Afghan territory should not be used to destabilize any neighbor or used for terrorism against China or for any other country or any other neighbor for that matter. 2 countries have already given Afghanistan a lot of humanitarian support, Pakistan and China. So I think investment is going to follow, but China also has the same concerns about Afghanistan that Pakistan does.
Chinese projects in Pakistan now receive stringent security. The Karakoram Security Force, which was incorporated into the regular police force, is one such move. Chinese officials are escorted along the highway by a phalanx of armed guards. Johar Ali is a member of the Gilgit-Baltistan police force who is ensuring that no attacks take place against Chinese interest in the region.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. मेरा नाम जोहर अली, हम जीबी पुलिस से ताल्लुक़ रखते हैं, गिलगित बल्तिस्तान। अभी इस वक्त हम फर्स्ट स्टॉप में खड़े हैं, सिप 5 पेट्रोलिंग करते हैं, हमारी ड्यूटी है सिप पेट्रोल। तो हमारे साथ सुबह हमारे साथ 9 बंदे हैं ड्यूटी पे टोटल। सुबह 6 बजे से रात 10 बजे तक हमारी ड्यूटी होती है। सुबह 6 से 2 बजे तक एक शिफ्ट, 2 बजे से रात 10 बजे तक एक शिफ्ट। इस तरह हम ड्यूटी करते हैं। चाइना में जो कंटेनर आते हैं यहाँ पे, इनका हम ड्यूटी करते हैं इनके साथ। जो भी पंजाब से जो भी मेहमान आते हैं, इनके लिए कोई मसला मसाइल हो जाए तो हम उनको वो करते हैं। रोड पे जो भी गाड़ियाँ ख़राब होते हैं उनका हम हेल्प करते हैं। ये गाड़ी चाइना से आए है, चाइना ने पाकिस्तान को दिया है, तो इसी रोड के हवाले से केश के हवाले से इसके ड्यूटी के लिए चाइना ने दिया है पाकिस्तान को, तो ये हमारे लिए फ़ायदा है।
Beijing will want similar commitments to the safety of its nationals in Afghanistan. It has reportedly told the Taliban that when the situation is more stable, it will invest in large infrastructure projects, including transport links and power plants. Something China is already doing in Pakistan. Here in this remote region of northern Pakistan, Chinese engineer Ho Chin Ho and his team have been working on establishing a power plant. The transnational project is led by Pakistani engineer Ghulam Murtaza. They are constructing a hydropower project using Chinese technology. It will supply electricity to the village communities in this region.
14 मेगावाट है, सिंक्रोनाइज होकर 132 केवीए के ग्रिड पे जा रहा है। वहाँ से फर्दर जो है गिलगित और उसके मुज़ाफ़ात को बिजली मिल रही है। इस वक्त गिलगित और उसके मुज़ाफ़ात के 35,000 कंज्यूमर्स इस वक्त हैं, जिसमें डोमेस्टिक भी है, कमर्शियल भी है, इंडस्ट्रियल भी है।
Perhaps because of projects like these, Chinese nationals enjoy remarkable popularity throughout Pakistan. 90% of Pakistanis view the Middle Kingdom favorably, according to one poll. As China looks to build closer ties with Afghanistan, engineers like Chinho could soon be sent there for similar projects.
对中国公司也是一是一个挑战，二是一个非常大的一个机遇。困难还是有的，就是肯定会遇到很多就是地质条件的灾害啊，还有恶劣环境各方面的问题。这些我们都努力的克服了，在当地人民和政府的帮助下。
1 year on from the return to Taliban rule, and most of the world are still wringing their hands over how to deal with the militant government. Meanwhile, China has moved ahead in establishing closer ties. But huge questions remain on the Taliban's ability to govern, as Afghanistan teeters on the brink of collapse. But should Beijing's gamble pay off, it will stand to profit handsomely from this hand of friendship.